Story 1. Small kindness, great harm, great kindness, impartial nature. Every person carries a sense of kindness within them. When witnessing others in hardship, we often feel compelled to help. However, if that help merely alleviates our feelings of sympathy without truly improving the other person's situation, it is merely small kindness, a shallow form of compassion. Such actions, while well-intentioned, may not yield lasting results and can even cause more harm in the long run. In a northern forest, there was an old man who often saw two injured deer unable to forage for food. Feeling sorry for them, he brought them food every day. Over the years, the deer population in that area grew rapidly, and they stopped migrating to avoid the harsh winters. But one year, the old man passed away. Without his food supply, hundreds of deer starved, leaving the herd nearly extinct. In another region, a group of people pitted wild deer that were often hunted by wolves. They proposed to the authorities to eradicate the wolves to protect the deer. A few years later, without wolves to keep their numbers in check, the deer population exploded. They overgrazed, destroying the ecosystem, and ultimately died in massive numbers. The government later had to reintroduce wolves to restore ecological balance. In the Tao Te Ching, it is written, "Heaven and earth are impartial, all things operate according to natural laws." True kindness must be rooted in understanding and alignment with these universal laws. Not all good deeds are genuinely good. True goodness requires wisdom, foresight, and a deep understanding of long-term consequences and broader benefits. When helping others, think carefully and consider the bigger picture. Avoid letting momentary sympathy lead to unintended harm. True kindness lies in balancing compassion with wisdom, harmonizing humanity and intelligence. The ancients taught, understand people's hearts, align with the heavens. This is not merely a philosophy of life, but also an art of maintaining peace of mind and clarity of thought. Those who grasp this principle will remain steadfast amidst life's storms and calm in the face of its uncertainties. Join us in exploring these 19 stories today, along with their valuable lessons, to live a more fulfilling life and discover true tranquility within the soul. Story 2. A single meal reveals a person's cultivation. The ancients said, "Mind the pot while eating, mind the direction while sitting." This means that even in dining, one must exercise caution, demonstrating politeness and respect. Many people think that eating is a trivial matter, but sometimes, behavior during a meal can significantly impact one's career and future. Below are two stories that clearly illustrate the connection between table manners and a person's cultivation. David's job interview. David, an outstanding candidate, was invited to an interview at a prestigious company. Throughout the interview, he demonstrated exceptional abilities and left a strong impression on the employers. At the end of the session, the CEO invited David to a dinner, considering it the final evaluation round. David believed his actions during the dinner were appropriate, from the way he spoke to how he interacted. However, he was surprised to learn that he was not selected. Feeling frustrated, David assumed favoritism or injustice was involved. Eventually, the HR department revealed the reason. Despite David's qualifications, he was not chosen because, throughout the dinner, he never once expressed gratitude to the servers. This behavior left the management feeling that he lacked subtlety and respect, qualities essential in the workplace. Lily's boyfriend. On New Year's Eve, Lily invited her parents from the countryside to the city to celebrate. Her boyfriend, Tom, eager to make a good impression, quickly reserved a table at an upscale restaurant. Despite his efforts, Lily's parents felt that Tom was unsuitable as a future son-in-law. They gave 3 reasons. Lack of consideration. Tom made the reservation without consulting Lily or her parents about their dietary preferences or tastes, showing a lack of attentiveness. Impatience with service. During peak hours, the food was served slowly. Tom repeatedly pressured the servers, showing irritation, and even complained to the manager. Poor etiquette. When Tom's phone rang during the meal, instead of excusing himself, he took the call at the table, talking for over 10 minutes while eating. This made Lily's parents feel uncomfortable. After hearing her parents' feedback, Lily also began to reconsider their relationship. Behavior at the dining table, even in small details, reflects a person's cultivation and character. Careless actions, such as failing to say thank you or showing poor manners toward servers, can leave a negative impression and affect how others perceive you. When sitting at the dining table, always remember, it's not just about eating but also about how every gesture and word matters. Respect and subtlety in your behavior not only build a positive personal image but also foster stronger relationships in both life and career. Story 3. Is silence in the face of wrong truly innocent? The story of the fisherman and the golden fish is familiar to us all, leaving behind a profound lesson about insatiable greed and its consequences. However, upon deeper reflection, this tale is not just a warning for the greedy wife, but also raises an important question about the responsibility of the fisherman, who chose silence in the face of wrongdoing. Bottomless greed and moral decline. The wife in the story initially wished for nothing more than a new trough for the pigs. However, once her wish was granted, she demanded more: a large house, the title of queen, and ultimately to become a deity with the golden fish as her servant. Her endless ambition led to her losing everything in the end. This reflects a universal truth: greed is a bottomless abyss. The more one tries to satisfy it, the deeper they sink. However, it is not enough to place all the blame on the wife. The story also includes another key figure, the fisherman, who played a crucial role in the events but chose to remain silent and compliant. The fisherman, a good man, but not innocent. The fisherman is portrayed as kind-hearted and simple. He released the golden fish back into the sea out of compassion and initially asked for nothing for himself. However, as his wife became increasingly greedy and unreasonable, he never objected. He failed to discern right from wrong. He blindly followed every demand of his wife, even though he knew they were unjust. The fisherman's passivity and fear were not acts of tolerance or patience. Instead, they were silent complicity, enabling wrongdoing to flourish. His silence allowed his wife's greed, selfishness, and cruelty to escalate. When she became queen, she mistreated him as a servant. Yet even then, the fisherman did not resist. By fulfilling every absurd request, he effectively encouraged her boundless greed. In the end, when she demanded to become a deity, the golden fish punished both of them by taking everything away. This punishment was not only for the greedy wife, but also for the fisherman, who chose silence in the face of wrongdoing. The story is not merely a critique of greed, but a wake-up call for everyone. Silence in the face of evil is a form of guilt. As the saying goes, the world suffers not because of the actions of bad people, but because of the silence of good people. When we fail to oppose wrongdoing, we indirectly support it. Unreasonable concessions strengthen wrongdoing. The fisherman thought yielding to his wife's demands would maintain peace. In reality, his concessions only fueled her greed, leading to disastrous consequences. Small actions can have big consequences. If the wife had only asked for a trough or a large house, perhaps no one would have been harmed. However, her desire to become queen and a deity endangered the entire kingdom, illustrating how unbridled ambition can harm others. In today's society, we often face injustice or wrongdoing. Many choose silence to protect themselves or avoid trouble. However, as the story illustrates, silence does not absolve us of guilt. Learn to distinguish right from wrong, stand up for justice, and never let fear keep you silent in the face of evil. Only by confronting and resisting can we contribute to making the world a better place. And remember, silence is not the solution. Sometimes, a single word or timely action can change everything. Story 4: The Innate Goodness of Humanity. The ancients said, at birth, human nature is inherently good. People are born virtuous, but the burdens and challenges of life can obscure this goodness. Yet, compassion and small acts of kindness always hold the power to inspire and transform. One afternoon, in a bustling marketplace, a 12-year-old boy was caught stealing a loaf of bread from a stall. The stall owner seized him, and a crowd quickly gathered, criticizing the boy. The angry stall owner asked, "Why did you steal my bread? Didn't your parents teach you anything?" The boy, with his head lowered and tears streaming down his face, murmured, "My mother is gravely ill at home. We have no food, and I didn't know what else to do." Hearing this, some bystanders began to feel sympathy, but the stall owner, still upset, insisted on taking the boy to the police station. Amid the tension, an elderly man stepped forward and gently said to the stall owner, "Let me pay for the bread." The stall owner reluctantly agreed, but the old man didn't stop there. Turning to the crowd, he said, "Today, we could punish this boy, but that won't change his life. If we truly want to help, let's give him a chance to change." The man searched his pockets, handed the boy some money, and said, "Take this. Buy more bread and bring it home to your mother. But remember, no one deserves to be judged solely by their actions during desperate times. If you want to change your life someday, come find me. I'll help you." The boy, moved to tears, bowed and thanked the man. Years later, now grown, the boy sought out the old man who had helped him. He shared, "You didn't just save me from judgment that day, you planted a belief in me that I could become a better person. I studied and worked hard, and now I can support my mother and myself." Human nature is inherently good, but circumstances can drive people to make mistakes. Compassion and the opportunity for change have far greater transformative power than punishment or judgment. When you help someone rediscover the goodness within, you not only change their life, but also contribute to a better society. Thank you for watching this video filled with profound lessons from the ancients. We hope you enjoy it and gain valuable insights. Story 5: Fragrant tea must be steeped in boiling water. One day, a young man visited a temple, feeling disheartened by the difficulties in his life. Sitting before the venerable monk Tikvain, he sighed and said, "Master, my life is filled with failure and suffering. Can someone as useless as me ever achieve anything meaningful?" The monk did not respond immediately. Instead, he gently took a handful of tea leaves and asked a junior monk to bring some warm water. When the warm water arrived, Tikvain placed the tea leaves in a cup and poured the warm water over them. He invited the young man to drink. After 2 sips, the young man frowned and said, "This tea has no flavor at all." Smiling, the monk asked the junior monk to boil a pot of water. Once the boiling water was ready, Tikvain took another cup, added the same tea leaves, and slowly poured the hot water over them. The tea leaves floated and sank in the cup, releasing a gentle aroma. As the young man eagerly reached for the cup, the monk stopped him, saying, "Wait a moment." He poured more boiling water into the cup, once, then twice. The room gradually filled with a rich, fragrant aroma. When the young man finally took a sip, he found the tea's flavor to be deep and distinct, entirely different from before. The monk asked, "Do you know why the same tea produced 2 different flavors?" The young man thought for a moment and replied, "Because one was steeped with warm water, and the other with boiling water." Tikvain nodded, smiling as he explained. When steeped in warm water, the tea leaves remain on the surface, unable to release their aroma. But when boiling water is poured over them slowly, the tea leaves are infused, and their true fragrance emerges. People are the same. Only when faced with adversity and tempered by challenges can their best qualities be revealed. He continued, like tea steeped in boiling water, a person must endure hardship to grow and achieve greatness. Spring rain, summer heat, autumn winds, and winter snow, all are essential for life to become strong. Without willpower and refinement, a person will remain like tea in warm water, unable to release their true fragrance. Just as tea reveals its fragrance in boiling water, people show their best qualities only when overcoming adversity. A fragrant cup of tea is steeped gradually, much like how life's difficulties strengthen us over time. A sharp sword is forged in fire, and a fragrant plum blossom endures the bitter cold of winter. All beautiful things require time and refinement. Adversity is not the end, it is an essential part of growth. If life feels overwhelmingly difficult, think of the tea in boiling water. Only by facing and overcoming pressure can you release your unique fragrance. As the saying goes, the plum blossom's fragrance comes from the bitter cold, and a sword's sharpness comes from the forge. So be patient, persistent, and embrace challenges as part of life. Fragrant tea must be steeped in boiling water, and those who wish to leave a mark must endure life's trials. Story 6. Change your thinking, change your perspective. One morning, a lecturer was busy preparing content for an important speech. However, his young son kept running around and making noise nearby. Frustrated, the father looked around, searching for a way to keep his son quiet. He picked up a magazine from the table, tore out a picture of a world map, cut it into small pieces, and said to his son, "If you can put this map back together, I'll reward you with 2 coins." The father thought this task would keep the boy occupied for at least the entire morning. Yet, less than 10 minutes later, the boy knocked on his father's door, holding the completed map in his hands. Amazed, the father asked, "How did you finish the puzzle so quickly?" The boy smiled and explained, "It was easy, Dad. On the back of the map, there was a picture of a person. I just put the person together correctly, then flipped it over. If the person is correct, the map of the world is correct too." Hearing this, the father couldn't help but laugh, then said, "You've just helped me prepare the most important lesson for tomorrow's lecture." He continued, "If a person is right, their world will also be right. Changing the world may be difficult, but changing yourself is much easier. Changing the world may seem like an impossible mission, but changing yourself is within reach." As the father in the story realized, when a person becomes upright and correct, their world naturally aligns as well. So, begin with small changes in yourself, how you perceive problems, how you treat others, and the habits you form in daily life. As the saying goes, relying on others cannot compare to relying on yourself. Changing the world cannot compare to changing yourself. Story 7. Respect others, respect yourself. One morning at a school gate, a commotion suddenly drew everyone's attention. A woman was loudly scolding a security guard for asking her to register before entering the school, even though she insisted she had presented her pass earlier that day. The woman, visibly annoyed, pointed at the security guard and said, "You're just a security guard. Who are you to make such demands of me?" Despite his efforts to stay calm, the guard couldn't hide his frustration and retorted, "This is a school. My job is to ensure the safety of the students. Rules are rules, no exceptions." The situation escalated until the woman began to cry, threatening to report the guard to the principal. At that moment, a friend of the woman, who also worked at the school, arrived. Understanding the situation, she immediately apologized to the guard, "I'm sorry for the inconvenience. We'll follow the rules." This simple apology diffused the tension. However, the incident had already drawn the attention of many bystanders, leaving them with the impression that the woman had behaved disrespectfully. A teacher nearby gently remarked, "Regardless of someone's job, whether they're a security guard or a janitor, everyone deserves respect." Respecting others is also a way of respecting yourself. Every individual has their own role and responsibility in society. A security guard's duty is to ensure the safety of students, and following procedures is not only their responsibility but also a sign of professionalism. Human interactions are like mirrors. When you smile at someone, they will likely smile back. Politeness and empathy foster positive relationships. Talent may help you achieve success, but it is ethics that earn you respect. No matter how skilled a person may be, without respect for others, they will struggle to gain admiration and support. Respecting others is not just a sign of politeness, it reflects your own character and values. Everyone, no matter their job, deserves kindness and fairness. As the saying goes, ethics can compensate for a lack of talent, but talent cannot compensate for a lack of ethics. Remember, respecting others is a way to affirm your own value in the eyes of the world. Story 8: The Monk and the Atheist. During a visit to my relatives, I had the chance to explore an ancient temple. There, I overheard a conversation between an atheist and a venerable monk. The exchange left a deep impression on me, unraveling a knot in my mind that I hadn't realized was there. The dialogue. Monk: What is it that you do not believe in the most, dear visitor? Atheist: I do not believe in things I cannot see. Monk: You are very honest. Let me ask, 1,000 meters away, there is a magnificent golden and green temple. But when night falls, all you see is darkness. Tell me, does the temple still exist? Atheist: Of course, it still exists. It's only hidden by the darkness. Monk: Then, do you believe in the night? Atheist: Yes, because I can see it covering everything. Monk: So, by day you believe in light, and by night you believe in darkness. Does this mean your beliefs are confined to what your eyes can perceive? The atheist fell silent, deep in thought. The monk continued, In truth, whether you see it or not, the temple remains as it is. It is only your mind that is veiled by the night, causing it to disappear from your perception. This is akin to the things that cloud your mind. They are merely different forms of darkness, obscuring your understanding. The atheist clasped his hands and bowed, Please enlighten me further, venerable monk. The monk replied, Dear visitor, all things in this world exist, whether or not you see or feel them. If you rely solely on what you can perceive to form judgments, you are like a frog in a well. The vast universe is immense and wondrous. How can you use the limited faculties of sight and hearing to judge it? By refusing to believe in what you cannot see, you are limiting your own mind and obscuring the vast possibilities in your world. Seeing is not everything. What we cannot see does not mean it does not exist. Human knowledge and perception are limited and cannot be used to deny everything in the world. The mind is like the sun, and the night light and darkness do not affect the existence of things. It is only the veiled mind that creates differences in perception. Believe in something greater. Do not confine your belief to what can be perceived by your eyes or ears. The existence of the universe and profound values lies beyond ordinary recognition. Let go of rigidity. The things that disturb the mind are like the night that blinds the eyes. When we let go of rigidity, our minds expand, allowing us to see the essence of things. As the monk said, do not deceive yourself, nor let your mind be obscured by the limitations of what you can see and hear. The vast universe is not for us to judge, but to explore and experience. Story 9. When the pain is enough, you will let go. Perhaps, in life, everyone has asked themselves, why is it that the things I need to remember are so hard to recall, while the things I want to forget seem impossible to erase? One day, a man with a sorrowful expression approached a monk and asked, "Master, why are there things and people that I just cannot let go of?" The monk gently replied, "There is nothing in this world that cannot be let go. It's just that you haven't truly reached the moment when you want to let go." The man shook his head, insisting, "But there are things I've tried countless times to let go of, yet I still cannot." At this point, the monk handed him a cup and began pouring tea into it. But the monk didn't stop. He kept pouring until the tea overflowed, spilling onto the man's hand. The hot tea burned him, causing him to cry out in pain and quickly set the cup down. The monk smiled and said, "You see, there's nothing that cannot be let go. When the pain becomes unbearable, you will naturally set it down." The man fell silent, the monk's words piercing through the pain he had long kept hidden. The monk continued, "In truth, deep within everyone lies suffering that only they understand. Time is not a cure, but a test. When you allow your mind to settle, when your emotions cease to storm, your consciousness will find peace, enabling you to embrace, open up, and let go of what doesn't belong to you. Letting go is not forgetting, but accepting. When we've endured enough pain, grown tired, and found the clarity to understand that some things cannot be held onto forever, we will naturally learn to release them. Time is not the healer, the heart is. Time doesn't heal wounds. It's our mindset, mature and calm, that allows us to move past pain gracefully. Pain is part of growth. Sometimes, wounds aren't meant for us to merely endure. They teach us to grow, to accept life's imperfections, and to find strength in them. As the monk said, when the pain becomes enough, you will let go. Not because everything has changed, but because your heart has changed. So, if there are things you cannot yet release, give yourself time. Don't force it, because when the pain is enough, you will instinctively know how to set it down. Story 10. Harvesting too early. In a small village, there was a boy named Dan. Every day, and accompanied his parents to the fields to work. One day, his parents assigned him the task of tending to a newly planted rice field. His duties were to water the plants and remove weeds. At first, and worked diligently. However, as he watched the rice plants grow very slowly, he became impatient. He thought, if I wait like this, when will we ever be able to harvest? One day, and came up with an idea, he would pull the rice plants upward to help them grow faster. That afternoon, and spent hours pulling each plant a few centimeters out of the ground. When he finished, he felt very satisfied, believing that the rice plants now looked much taller. And happily went home and shared his success with his parents. Hearing this, his parents panicked and rushed to the field. But it was too late, all the rice plants had been uprooted and had withered. Ant's father sighed and said, "My son, rice can only grow by absorbing nutrients from the soil. Your impatience to see results quickly caused you to forget that everything requires time and patience." This story reminds us that in life, some things require patience and perseverance. If we intervene hastily, we risk not only failing to achieve our goals, but also causing harm. Great achievements cannot be rushed. Just as rice needs time to grow, people must take each step carefully along the path to maturity. Good intentions without thought can lead to unintended consequences. Like pulling the rice to make it grow faster, well-meaning but impulsive efforts can result in harm. Not everything can be accelerated. Only by diligently doing the right things each day can success come naturally over time. This story is a gentle reminder to approach life with patience and trust in the process. The rewards will come when the time is right. Story 11. The Man and the Watch. There was a wealthy man who owned a precious watch passed down from his grandfather. To him, the watch was not just an accessory but a symbol of success and status. One day, in his haste to board a train, he accidentally dropped the watch into a small gap on the floor of the train. Despite trying to reach into the gap, he couldn't retrieve it. Worried and upset, he asked those around him if anyone could help him retrieve the watch. A poor boy, who was selling goods on the train, stepped forward and said, "Sir, let me try to help you." The man, skeptical but with no other options, agreed. The boy sat down beside the gap, closed his eyes, and stayed silent for a moment. Then, he slowly reached his hand into the gap. Within seconds, he retrieved the watch. Amazed, the man asked, "How did you manage to do that? Even someone like me couldn't reach it." The boy smiled and replied, "It's simple, sir. I just sat still, listened carefully, and waited for the watch to tick. Then, I reached my hand to the exact spot and picked it up. If I had rushed and fumbled around aimlessly, I wouldn't have been able to find it." In life, many problems cannot be solved through haste. Sometimes, the fastest way to find a solution is to pause, listen, and think carefully. The wealthy man learned that skill and intelligence are not determined by age or circumstances. Everyone has their own unique value, as long as we are willing to listen and trust. Moreover, the story reminds us to appreciate those around us. Help can come from the most unexpected places, and we should never underestimate the value of others. Story 12. The Christmas Eve Miracle. Every Christmas Eve, a company had a tradition of hosting a celebration and a lucky draw event. According to the rules, each employee contributed $10 to the prize fund. With 300 employees, the total prize amounted to $3,000, a generous gift. Every year, employees eagerly anticipated the event, hoping to be the lucky winner. This year was no different. On the day of the draw, the office buzzed with excitement as everyone cheerfully wrote their names on slips of paper and placed them into the lottery box. However, Min, a young employee, hesitated. He had recently heard about Hoa, a janitor at the company, and her young son. The boy was about to undergo a critical surgery, but the family couldn't afford the medical expenses. Worry and sadness were evident on Hoa's face every day. Even though Min knew the chances of winning were just 1 in 300, he decided to write Hoa's name on his slip. Moments later, cheers erupted throughout the office. A miracle had happened. The winner was none other than Hoa herself. Amid the enthusiastic applause, Hoa tearfully stepped forward to claim the prize. Overwhelmed with emotion, she said, "I am so lucky. With this money, my son now has hope." After the ceremony ended, Min reflected on the miracle that had just unfolded. Curious, he went to the lottery box, pulled out a random slip, and opened it. To his surprise, it also bore Hoa's name. He picked a few more slips, and all of them, written in different handwriting, had Hoa's name. Tears filled Min's eyes as he realized the truth. The Christmas miracle wasn't just luck, it was the collective kindness and compassion of everyone around him. When we face difficulties, we often hope for miracles. But sometimes, the true miracles come from acts of kindness and generosity. Let us always keep our hearts open and spread love wherever we go. After all, the greatest miracles often begin with the simple act of caring for one another. Story 13. The Wilted Vegetables. One quiet afternoon, I went for a walk in the peaceful outskirts with a close friend. Suddenly, an elderly man dressed in tattered clothes approached us, holding a small bag of vegetables. The greens looked pitiful, many leaves were wilted, brown, or even bore signs of insect bites. Upon seeing the old man, my friend didn't say a word but immediately bought the bag of vegetables. The elderly man hesitated and explained, "These are vegetables I grew myself, but the heavy rain yesterday damaged them. I'm sorry they're not very fresh." My friend simply smiled and replied, "That's okay." After the old man disappeared from view, I curiously asked, "Are you really planning to eat those vegetables?" Without hesitation, my friend answered, "No, they're not edible anymore." Surprised, I asked, "Then why did you buy them?" With a gentle smile, my friend replied, "Because I'm certain no one else would buy them. If I didn't, the old man might not sell anything today." That response left me deeply moved. Without delay, I ran after the old man and bought a few more bundles. Overjoyed, he said, "I've been trying to sell these vegetables all day, but only you two were willing to buy them. Thank you so much." Those wilted vegetables taught me a profound lesson. Life isn't always smooth, and everyone faces their own struggles. Yet, even in the midst of our own busy or tiring lives, there are people who are willing to extend a helping hand, even if it's just through a small act of kindness. Story 14: The Enlightenment of the Young Monk. From ancient times, practicing Buddhism has been a noble yet arduous journey. Achieving enlightenment and becoming a Buddha is extraordinary, but how many can truly reach such a state? For those with a strong foundation and unwavering determination, attaining true fruition is not impossible. On a high mountain stood a small temple where an old monk and his young disciple lived and practiced. Every day, they would descend the mountain to collect alms. Though young, the novice monk diligently performed chores such as fetching water, lighting fires, and cleaning. Despite the arduous work, he always remained joyful and dedicated. One day, while sweeping the courtyard, the young monk gazed at a majestic Buddha statue and thought, "I chant and recite the Buddha's teachings daily, but who is the Buddha truly?" Unable to contain his curiosity, he ran to ask the old monk. Hearing the question, the old monk smiled and replied, "The Buddha is one who has attained enlightenment, transcended the three realms, possesses great power, and radiates divine light." The young monk asked further, "How can I attain Buddhahood?" The old monk calmly answered, "You must always do good and refrain from evil. When your heart is filled with compassion and good intentions, you will move closer to the realm of the enlightened." One day, the old monk instructed the young monk to meditate facing a wall. The novice sat all day, enduring hunger but maintaining his patience. The next day, still without food, the young monk thought, "Master must be testing my resolve. I mustn't lose heart." From afar, the old monk observed his disciple's calm demeanor and nodded in satisfaction. He said, "You've done well. Even in hunger, you did not complain and kept your mind serene. This shows you have a strong foundation." The old monk then handed the young monk 3 coins and said, "Go down the mountain to seek alms, and you will discover a profound truth." On his journey, the young monk encountered a frail beggar by the roadside. Seeing the poor old man neglected by others, the novice felt troubled. Although he himself was hungry, he used the 3 coins to buy 2 buns and gave them both to the beggar. This act brought him an inner sense of joy and peace. He thought, "If I didn't help others, even if I were full, my heart would not be at ease." On his way back, a moth flew into his eye, causing him sharp pain. However, he did not feel anger but instead thought, "If I harbor resentment toward this tiny moth, how can I ever attain enlightenment? I should be grateful for this chance to strengthen my mind." The monk's tolerance and calmness in the face of minor challenges illuminated his soul further. Upon returning to the temple, the young monk shared his experiences with the old monk. He said, I have realized that helping others, living with compassion, and letting go of attachments are the true paths to enlightenment. The old monk listened and smiled, then wrote on a piece of paper, "This is not yet the Buddha nature." Reflecting deeply, the young monk realized that he had felt joy and sought recognition for his good deeds. He thought, "I've clung to the desire for approval, which undermines the sincerity of my good intentions." Acknowledging his mistake, the young monk immediately corrected himself. Seeing this, the old monk smiled with satisfaction. In that moment, the young monk saw before him a radiant golden land, where he sat upon a lotus throne ascending to the Pure Land. Practicing Buddhism is not merely about outward actions, but also about letting go of attachments, living with genuine kindness, and always considering others. When you achieve this, the path to enlightenment will naturally unfold before you. Story 15. The less you desire, the more peaceful your heart. Long ago, in a small village nestled on a mountainside, there lived a woodcutter named Min. He led a simple life in an old, humble hut, spending his days chopping wood in the forest to sell at the market. Although he lived modestly, Min always carried a smile, earning the affection of everyone in the village. One day, Min met Lam, a wealthy merchant who had just moved to the village. Lam was always busy and constantly worried about money and business deals. Curious about Min's perpetual cheerfulness, Lam asked, "Min, you're just a poor woodcutter. How is it that you always seem so carefree and untroubled?" Min smiled gently and replied, "Because I desire nothing beyond having enough to eat and wear. When I desire nothing, my heart is naturally at peace." Lam laughed mockingly, "There is no one in the world who has no desires. Don't you want a nicer house or more money?" Min calmly responded, "If I had a big house, I'd worry about repairing it when it breaks. If I had a lot of money, I'd worry about keeping it safe, fearing theft. The more we have, the more we worry. But when I find contentment in what I already have, I have no worries." Lam disagreed and left, but Min's words lingered in his mind. Over time, Lam faced a major crisis. A failed investment wiped out most of his fortune. Overwhelmed by anxiety and pressure, he couldn't sleep. With no one to turn to, he sought Min's advice. After listening to Lam's story, Min didn't criticize him. Instead, he said, "Life is inherently impermanent. Wealth and status are fleeting, they come and go. Rather than dwelling on what you've lost, try letting go. When you stop chasing after things, your heart will gradually find peace." Lam found it hard to understand, but with no other options, he decided to stay in the village and live simply like men. At first, it was difficult for him to let go of his desires. However, over time, he noticed that he was no longer bound by constant worries. He began to appreciate the simplicity of life, a humble meal, the sound of birds in the morning, and the moonlight at night. A year later, when Min prepared to leave the village to retire in his hometown, Lam came to bid him farewell. He said, "Min, I understand now. Life isn't about how much you have, but about living with a sense of contentment. Thanks to you, I've learned to let go." Min smiled, patting Lam's shoulder. Life is short. The more you desire, the more you suffer. When your heart no longer chases after things, happiness will always be with you. As Min walked away, Lam felt a weight lift from his heart. From that day on, he lived a simple life, but his heart remained serene. Life is a journey where happiness doesn't come from what we possess, but from knowing when we have enough. Story 16. Living in happiness without realizing it. Perhaps the greatest regret in life is not losing something, but having lived in happiness without realizing it. People endlessly chase after distant desires, exhausting their minds in the process. Only when we lose what we had do we understand how fortunate and fulfilled we once were. The story of the friend and her mother. One day, I was chatting with a friend who shared a story about her mother. Her family was quite wealthy, living in a spacious house. However, her mother was never satisfied, always admiring the luxurious mansions of others. She often complained, "How can our life compare to theirs? Living like this can hardly be called luxurious." Her son, wanting to please her, invested all his money into buying a mansion. Unfortunately, a failed business venture plunged the family into heavy debt. They were forced to sell everything and move into a cramped house in a dark alley. Only then did her mother realize that she had been living in happiness all along but failed to appreciate it. Her endless desires had caused the family to lose everything. The story of the poor man and the angel. A poor man lived in a cramped house where 4 generations were squeezed into the same space. Feeling miserable, he prayed for help from an angel. The angel appeared and said, "Bring your chickens and ducks into the house to live with you for a week." After a week, unable to bear the filth and noise, the man begged the angel again. The angel smiled and said, "Now, let them all out." After another week, the man felt his house was peaceful and spacious. He knelt and thanked the angel. "Thank you for granting me happiness." In truth, the angel didn't give him anything new but simply helped him realize the value of what he already had. People often focus on what they lack, comparing themselves to others, and forgetting how fortunate they already are. Happiness isn't about having more, but appreciating what you already have. If burden is suffering, then letting go is happiness. If hunger and cold are suffering, then being full and warm is happiness. If overcrowding is suffering, then peace and space are happiness. Life already holds plenty of happiness, it's just a matter of whether we recognize it. Time never rewinds. What we have today might become what we regret losing tomorrow. So, live fully and cherish every moment in the present. Don't wait until something is gone to realize you were happy all along. Story 17. Why do we get angry? An author once said, "A smile can mend everything, while anger can destroy millions of things." Yet in modern life, people find it increasingly easy to become angry and struggle to control their emotions. Even trivial matters can push individuals into a state of tension, leaving their minds fatigued and happiness further out of reach. On the streets, it's not uncommon to see people flaring up over minor issues. Drivers yelling at pedestrians for not yielding, pedestrians cursing reckless drivers, or 2 drivers arguing over a small collision. These conflicts not only hurt others, but also leave the angry party unsettled and miserable. Even at home, seemingly small matters can ignite fiery arguments. Spouses bicker over trivial issues, leading to unnecessary divorces. In the workplace, colleagues may clash over minor gains, creating a toxic environment. Anger not only disrupts harmony but also burdens the soul. The old saying goes, "Take a step back, and the sea and sky are boundless. Endure for a moment, and the winds and waves will calm." But sadly, modern hearts are often too narrow to tolerate or forgive. I once knew a woman who always remained calm and cheerful, even in the face of life's challenges. One day, her daughter and son-in-law had a heated argument. Instead of blaming the son-in-law or siding with her daughter, she analyzed the situation objectively, pointing out faults on both sides and offering gentle words of advice. In the end, the conflict was resolved, and the family avoided an unnecessary divorce. When her son was deceived and lost money, she didn't scold him but instead advised, "Accept the loss and start over." She even saved up money to help him through his difficulties. Her husband had a hot temper and often spoke harshly, but she never took it to heart. She would say, "He only speaks harshly, but he's kind at heart." Thanks to her patience and tolerance, their family remained harmonious and happy. Anger and strife only bring suffering. Those who are forgiving, patient, and willing to let go can dissolve conflicts and maintain peace in their hearts. The ancients said, "The belly of a prime minister can row a boat." This metaphor suggests that a person with a vast and generous heart can endure and overcome any difficulty. Two mindsets: gratitude versus complaint. Grateful people. When helped, they feel touched and appreciative. When criticized, they learn and improve. Complainers. When helped, they criticize it as insufficient. When criticized, they become angry and distrust others' intentions. Our mindset determines how we perceive and experience life. Challenges and hardships are inevitable, but our reactions define whether we find happiness or suffering. Learn to practice patience, embrace tolerance, and cultivate gratitude. When the mind is calm, all conflicts can be resolved, and life becomes lighter and more peaceful. Story 18: Stealing a Penny. This is a story about Mrs. T, a woman who spent more than 40 years tormented by guilt over a small mistake from her childhood. When she was a young elementary school girl, Mrs. T once stole a penny from her classmate because she was extremely hungry. She used that penny to buy a small snack. That day, her classmate cried while searching for the lost penny, but no one could identify the thief. Although no one discovered the truth and the classmate eventually forgot about it, Mrs. T could not erase the guilt from her heart. The incident etched itself deeply into her memory, becoming a burden that weighed heavily on her for decades. 40 years later, Mrs. T went to great lengths to find her childhood classmate. When she finally met her, she brought with her 10,000 coins and insisted her friend accept it as a way of apologizing and making amends for her past mistake. The friend was astonished, as she had no recollection of ever losing a penny. If not reminded, she would never have thought of it. But for Mrs. T, this was the only way to feel relief and free herself from the guilt that had haunted her for so long. Many of us have made small mistakes in our lives, ones that others may not notice, that society doesn't condemn. Yet we find it difficult to forgive ourselves. Conscience is the fairest judge of all. As the saying goes, a clear conscience makes for a good night's sleep. Guilt can lead us to punish ourselves, living in remorse and unease. This self-inflicted burden can sometimes feel heavier than external criticism. Mrs. T repaid a penny with 10,000 coins. That money wasn't to buy forgiveness from her friend, but to forgive herself. Her actions not only helped lift her long-standing burden, but also demonstrated the value she placed on her own conscience. Life is filled with errors, but how we choose to correct and reflect on them is what truly matters. Sometimes, peace of mind is more valuable than any material possession. Story 19: Are you hurt? In a small countryside family, there was a 7-year-old boy named Hai, the youngest child in the household. One afternoon, Hai curiously played with his mother's cherished flower vase. While playing, he accidentally knocked the vase to the ground, shattering it into countless pieces. Frozen in fear, Hai stood still, eyes red and teary, waiting for his mother's scolding. Hearing the loud crash, Hai's mother rushed into the room. Seeing the scene before her, instead of getting angry, she gently hugged Hai and asked, "Are you hurt? Did the broken pieces cut you?" Hai was stunned. He never expected his mother to care more about him than the beloved vase she had treasured so much. Tears streaming down his face, the little boy clung to his mother, sobbing, "I'm sorry, Mom, I didn't mean to." Smiling softly, his mother patted his head and said, "It's okay if the vase is broken. As long as you're safe, that's all I care about." Just be more careful next time, okay? Her words, "Are you hurt?" not only eased Hi's fear, but also taught him a profound lesson about love and valuing people over material things. From that day on, Hi stopped playing recklessly. Yet, whenever he made a mistake, he would always admit it honestly, knowing that his mother would treat him with love and forgiveness. In life, simple, kind words like "Are you hurt?" can have immense power. They soothe fears, heal emotional wounds, and strengthen bonds. They make the world a warmer and more compassionate place. So, let us always choose words of love and kindness over careless ones that leave lasting scars.